Hi everyone, welcome to our seminar today. I'm Anu, I'm the CEO and founder of Stimulus Coaching. We are specialists in business and career coaching. And previously we had held seminars on careers in data science, in software development, and in biosciences. And our topic for today is careers in sports marketing. Today, our guest for this event is Simon Pavitt, who has been a sports marketer for over 10 years and is currently the COO of London Technology Club. Simon, welcome to our show.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Okay, great. So, sports is a big part of our lives and we're all associated with it in a various variety of ways. So either we're participating or we are fans or, we are working in the sector, and there's a lot of passion and thrill around and excitement associated with the whole field. And sports marketing is sort of so piggybacking on the popularity and the emotion around sport to be able to reach out to its fans and market products that suit the profile. So I'm going to be just sharing my screen right now to just show you the popularity of some of these sports. Football is one of the most popular sports in the world today, or soccer as it's called, and it's followed by ice hockey, American football, baseball, cricket, wrestling, basketball, etc. And some interesting sports facts. 1.5 billion is awarded in prize money and bonuses every year in the UEFA Champions League. The English Premier League is the most watched professional sports league in the world. Other sports that follow soccer are cricket with 2.5 billion fans, hockey with 2.5, basketball and tennis with 1 billion plus. And then Americans are spending more than 100 billion on sports every year. Sure, the numbers are different for 2020 because of the unfortunate coronavirus, but sports is an integral part, and a lot of money is built around all the activities that happen in the sports world. Also, the esports market is now picking up, and it's expected to generate 1.5 billion in annual revenues from sponsorships, advertising, etc. Also, some other statistics on popularity. So Real Madrid and Barcelona are by far the most followed teams of any sport on social media, with over 100 million followers each. So we can kick off our discussion today. So Simon, I know that you've been associated with many sports and that you're an enthusiast as well. So over 10 years of a career in sports marketing, could you tell us a bit about which sports you've been associated with and how you've used it to reach your target audience over the last few years?
Sure. I know I look young. I've actually been in it for probably 20 years now. But I started out working in tennis. So I managed the Queen's Club and their annual tennis championships. I've worked in sailing. I've worked in golf. I've worked early days in cricket. And then I moved predominantly into Formula One. So that was where I spent a fair bit of time. I did 3 years of 51 Grand Prix, traveling around, following the tour. And then I moved across to lots of different sports in terms of an agency side of things. So Champions League, as you mentioned, Formula One back again. And then more recently, I was the marketing director of a Formula One team. So yeah, definitely a good spread of sports. And as you say, I'm an enthusiast. So one of the things I always think about is people go straight to the back pages of the newspapers, not the front. So that's when you know you're a proper sports fan.
And a few things about how you've used various sporting events to further, marketing. Mm-hmm. So, be it the Formula One or the tennis that you've been involved with, some experiences, if you could share in how you were able to.
Sure. The key to sport is the fact that it's a highly passionate fan base of people watching. So people are there either at the live event or on TV to watch the sport unfold. So there's always live action. There's the winners and the losers. And so you have a highly engaged audience. That's the main thing with sport for brands. So any companies looking to leverage sport, the key thing for them is that they know they've got millions of people around the world watching and that they're highly engaged. So that's the main reason why sport for a brand is really so exciting for them is the fact that you know that you're going to have a guaranteed live audience, both physically and now digitally, even more digitally now. So that's the real reason why brands want to attach themselves with sport, and then they use it as a platform. So the main thing for brands is to try and find a way to attach themselves to the sport and be part of the conversation. That used to be just from traditional branding around the sidelines, but now it's moved on, especially over the last 10 years, to much more deeper engagement. I suppose at the beginning, the reason why people wanted the use of sport was for brand exposure. That's why sponsorship has been on the increase for 25 years now. And it became sort of a key part of a global marketing company's weaponry. That was all about brand exposure. So that was just making sure that you got your brand out there, especially if you're a young brand that wanted to become more aware, people become more aware of you. But much more recently, probably again the last 5 years, people have used it much further down the funnel in terms of the path to purchase. So people are using it for loyalty, for retention, for much more sort of deeper parts to their brand. And so you've seen in sponsorship lots of companies that were using it just for logos and branding exposure, guaranteed exposure on TV. They've moved much more now towards deeper engagement. So yeah, that's my first take on stuff.
Okay, so as we understand, sports marketing is all about either using marketing of the sport or via the sport. And I think it's the sheer popularity of the sport with large numbers of the population that bring the marketers to follow through on these brands and use it. So, and also it can be fairly specific now. So for instance, if you're trying to reach out a female audience, then figure skating or some such event might be more popular. Whereas if you want the more male crowd, the Formula One events could be popular, or tennis possibly is with either male or female.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the one thing that's happened in sport nowadays is about data. So data is key, and the ability to know your audience is fundamental. So yes, I mean, actually the stats on Formula One, it's quite a mixed sport in terms of TV viewing. You have quite a few women as much as men enjoying the sport, especially on live TV. But yeah, the key to it is knowing the profiling of the audiences. I mean, esports is definitely a younger audience, although that's changing now with more people getting used to gaming and things like that being brought into the home. But yeah, the most important thing is for audience, for companies and brands and the rights holders, i.e. the sports, to know their audience first, which is all about data. And then nowadays we've got much better at targeting people around their passions. So, you know, the use of Facebook, for example, people know, brands know now if you're from your profile or from some of the profiling, that if you're a Chelsea fan, you can dish up some content specifically around Chelsea, or if you're at a certain age, you might be more likely to be interested in tennis or golf or sports. So it's become much more advanced now in terms of knowing who the audiences are and where they're at with that sport. I mean, I think football is the most Googled thing in the world. I think Google gets more football requests than anything else. So the amount of data that's now surfacing and people can uncover around people's behaviors, and especially around sport, is key.
Right, and there are a huge number of ways to build a career in sports marketing. So for instance, there's brand managers, there are account executives, there are sports agents, and there's simple project managers, right up to marketing directors. So what do you think? Has this field changed? How's it grown in the last few years? Do you think there's more options now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I started out 20 years ago, there was only a couple of agencies probably in sports marketing in London. And the chance to get in was very difficult. You know, you normally had to work for 6 months for free on an internship just to get your foot in the door. It was competitive in terms of there was quite a few people wanting to get into sports marketing, but actually the amount of places where you could go and work were limited. It wasn't as advanced as it is today. I mean, the business of sport now is huge. There are, you know, Formula One teams on their own are, you know, a couple of thousand, some of them per team. So there is much more opportunity now in sport. There are loads of agencies around the world, global agencies to small niche agencies.
Yeah.
And as you say, there's loads of different path or trajectories you can take. Whether that is from the agency side, as you say, whether that's from a brand side that has sponsorships that you want to go and work in the marketing department there, or whether that's on the rights holder side, so whether that's working for the FA or FIFA or Formula E or whoever. So yes, it's definitely become much more advanced. There's much more opportunities than there was 20 years ago, and so yeah, I'd say for anybody looking for a career in sport, I think that the chances now are higher than they were in the 20 years ago, and it's grown every year.
And have there any more specialized roles come around, or is just the same roles, but you just probably have more sports available?
No, I mean, so if we split it up into, say, agency side, there's a general hierarchy or a ladder. So you start as as account coordinator, account executive, then account manager, then account director. Then you look at managing different accounts or global account advisor. Then you move up more into the partner world and the strategy side of things, and then you move much more into managing the agency as a whole. From a rights holder side, they're often split into accounts or specific roles, whether that's in the marketing side of things, the events or hospitality. There's a general sort of path in each one of those sort of different areas that you can find. But I'm a big believer also in the fact that there really are some niche roles out there nowadays, and it's never, whilst there is some sort of set ways to go about things, I'm also a big believer in creating your own opportunities and finding your own niche.
So what could be some of these niche opportunities that are now available, just as example?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, even of late, the role of the influencer marketeer. So I worked in an agency or helped build an agency for 7 years, about 5 years ago, that was much more about live events and experiences and partnerships. And then in the last 5 years, we've seen a wave of new agencies building out through influencer marketing. So the role of the traditional sports agent has changed, and sports rights holders, for example, players or teams have needed digital experts and those that can manage social media and understand digital side of things a lot more. So if you're a digital expert and you know how to manage all these different social media profiles and know how to extract data and use data science, you're in a really good position at the moment in sport, because that's really hot and needed. So data science is definitely one of the latest things in sport that's come up probably in the last 5 years, that would have been a niche in the past is now becoming mainstream role in an agency, a brand, or a rights holder.
Sure, thank you. So how important is it to be close to the sport itself, and to become a sports marketer?
I think the first rule is that actually sports brands, sports teams, etc. I mean, the Formula One team I was working for, we would get hundreds of CVs just telling us they wanted to work for us or in the sport. But really, it's not about the sport. It's about the craft that you're bringing to the sport is more important. So actually, in Formula One, you want world-class engineers. You want world-class marketeers. You don't want world-class fans. Sometimes it's a good thing to have an understanding of the sport. So again, in Formula One, knowing what was possible when it came to marketing, because Formula One is quite a complex sport in terms of rules and regulations at the track, etc. So we used to work with a lot of agencies that would come and say, I want to do this, I want to do that. I really, these creative ideas, and an understanding of what was possible in that sport was useful. But generally, I think it's not. You definitely don't need to have a passion for that sport to work in the sport, and in fact sometimes it's better to not. You could be a passionate Formula One fan, and your experience of working in Formula One can probably turn you off Formula One for a while.
Sure. So it seems like, apart from having great marketing skills and a knowledge of the domain and of the sports world, you perhaps need a few other skills, like you said, digital skills, and data skills. So what are some of the other things? Like, is it important to be good with people, communications? What are some of the other things that can really shine your...
Like every job, I mean, there are core fundamental skills, and depending on what the job is within the sport. But if you take it, in a Formula One team as a marketing director, you need to have leadership skills. You need to understand the fundamentals of marketing. You need to have experience in leading people. You need to understand digital. Definitely is a key skill nowadays. You're not going to get very far in this world without understanding digital. But when you're starting out, if it's in early stages of the career, it's much more about attitude, willingness to learn, resilience, willing to get your hands dirty and get stuck onto a task. I think a lot of people have come into sports marketing having the dreams and wanting to just get to the top quickly, whereas actually, you need to have some patience and do the hard work and the hard graft early. So, people think that once they've made it into an agency, they're there, but that's when the hard work starts. And especially in agency world, it's tough. It's a tough gig. But I would say working in agencies is one of the most rewarding, because you are really at the sharp end. You really have to work hard to keep clients and to be on the cutting edge of what's going on in marketing if you're working in sports marketing. So I would say at the end of the day, it's always in the early stages, attitude and willingness to just to learn and get your hands dirty. And then the older you get and the more experience you get, you start to take much more of a macro view on things. But again, different people bring different leadership skills. So there's no one size fits all. You have to find your niche, find your expertise, or find the thing that you want to be the expert in. And then it's about trying to be world class at it in terms of craft. So, yeah.
Thank you, Simon. So I understand you also had a degree in psychology when you started out. So how was that helpful? Is that a good combination to have with your marketing? Because you're...
I think degrees are important because I think they show a level of application. And for me, psychology was very good for me in terms of learning to see a lot of data and a lot of reading lots of reports and then being able to distill it down into actionable insight. So I think that was the one thing I took away from psychology at university. Actually, that was the first thing I took away at psychology at university, was being able to read large volumes of information and being able to organize my thinking and to have a point of view around psychology. And then the second thing was about social sciences and understanding people's behavior. So I was always interested in what made people tick, what people got passionate about, and how to influence people in a good way through marketing and advertising. So those are the two things that I liked around my degree. But again, I still think the key thing to any company is about diversity anyway. So people coming from different backgrounds, different fields, different levels of expertise coming together. So it's about being good at what what you want to be good at and known for, and then bringing that to a team or to a sport. And sometimes you don't actually know that what you're doing in the early stages of your career, or some of the things that you learn, or some of the things that you go out and find out and get involved in more around 10 years down the line, are actually the things that take you to another level in the career that you didn't realize at the time were going to be so relevant 10 years down the line. So never be disheartened by anything. I think it's following your own path. But the main thing is, whatever you're doing, especially in the early stages of career, is really apply yourself and take as much from it as you can. So learn as much as possible, say yes to as many things you can in an early job, and get as much experience as possible, because it's never going to be not useful.
Sure. And in terms of the job itself, on a day-to-day basis, how important was it for you to be able to network and communicate correctly with people to get the deal signed? And so what are the, some things that really help you if you're quick on your feet, etc.? So what are some of the things that can help you just shine extra bright against your colleague? Or so how do you position yourself that, well, I know this is something that I can do better than anyone else. So apart from marketing knowledge, which everybody would have, what can put you a step ahead? Is it the network, or what is it?
Yeah, like you say, there are core fundamentals on being a good person in business, or working, which is, having discipline and um, applying yourself well and having the right attitude. That's core in any person that wants to do well in the world. But then, yeah, it's about then being horses for courses. So my roles generally in the last 20 years have been relationships and partnerships, and a fair bit of selling in terms of opportunities. And that's all about relationship building. That's about gaining trust from people early and quickly, building fast relationships, and becoming a trusted advisor to people. So the best thing about selling, especially if you're working in sponsorships or sports marketing and you're a rights holder looking to sell, is to try not to sell. It's actually just to be useful, and to be insightful and trying to problem solve for somebody. So, if you're trying to sell a sponsorship or a partnership, or you're a rights holder, you really want to get to know that person who you're selling to, what their problems are and how you can help them. So in sport, I would say having a passion for what you do always comes through. So, like I say, if you are an event manager, being super passionate about events, just literally like loving being at events, networking at other events, seeing how others are doing it, see what works, having your point of view, looking ahead, talking to everybody who you come across about what they do in their events. I think it's having a sort of expansive mindset, or always looking to reach out to people and talk about what you're interested in and get as much information from them is valuable. And so once you've picked your specific area, so some people go into sport because they like the idea of partnerships. That's what drove me on. I liked to put a brand together with a rights holder and then try to activate it as well as possible. I used to really enjoy that. That was rewarding. But for other people, they have a real passion for events and they love organizing hospitality. And or some people go into sport because they want to be an engineer, because they love the thrill of designing. And so it's all very different, but at the end of the day, you really need to make sure that you're going into it 100% and that you're always going to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. It's very important to know yourself and what makes you tick. And then doing the hard work, networking with people, having the discipline and being able to communicate and build relationships. And of course, being useful rather than being an outright salesperson. Absolutely. I completely agree. I have spent a few years in banking sales. And the biggest thing that made customers sign up was the fact that you've proven your worth time and again, that you were right in what you were being right by the client rather than right by your product. So yes, absolutely valuable advice. Thank you. Coming back to marketing, there's now specialized degrees in sports marketing. And so do you think it makes a difference if whether you're going for a generic marketing degree or more specialized, especially if you're very clear that that's where you want to build your career? Should you be going the specialization route or taking a more generic approach?
Again, I think there's no set path that guarantees you're going to make it to the top. In fact, a lot of people at the top of sports marketing or in the sports world haven't come through the traditional sports backgrounds. So you have people coming from FMCG brands that go in later in life to the top. But the flip side is, if you know what you want to do early, then it makes sense to go after a sports business degree or a sports marketing degree, because if that's what you want to do, then it's great that you've made your mind up and that you're going at it wholeheartedly. But I don't think it guarantees anything either in sport. And you could go and do a philosophy degree and still have value when you get into a sports marketing company or a sports marketing team. So I would say, if you know that that's what you're really passionate about and that's what you believe in and that's what you want to do, then I would say go for it. But I don't think I don't think you have to be successful in sport either. In fact, it's, again, when you look at some of the sports professionals as well, they come from really diverse backgrounds and really diverse degrees that some of them have done. And then later on down the career, when it comes to coaching or when it comes to working for a big company on the brand side, that comes back up later in life. So maybe they've done philosophy at university when they played cricket, and then 20 years later, they're in a sports, they're in a sports rights holders, and suddenly that's become useful and a useful tool for them to leverage. So there's no right or wrong. There's no defined path. But I would say in sport, though, one thing you do need is resilience, because it's competitive. Lots of people are trying to get in. Lots of people get in and think after a couple of years it's not for them. So and lots of people decide that they want to get into sport, but actually they wait and they get more traditional FMCG marketing background experience. They go and work for some brands, and then 15 years later they find the right job in sport.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So you need to be able to stick it out to be able to get to the top of the game. Absolutely, in any field, but I guess this is more competitive than some of the other fields today. Is there a chance to learn from other markets? Like the US is ahead of a lot of markets in terms of sports marketing, and the various activities they've built up around it. So what can we learn from them? And does it help to follow other sports, other markets?
Yeah, I would always say that if you want to know who are doing the most innovative things or the things first, I would say follow the US sports. So the NFL, the NBA, they're very, very advanced in their sports marketing. It's something that's been ingrained in sport in US culture for so many years, and they're obviously very commercially minded. So I would say, you're not going to go too far. If you follow the US sports, but follow the way the US sports are activating and engaging their audiences and setting up their rights and the systems they're employing, I would say that's the first port of call if you want to see who's doing it not necessarily the best, but definitely more time, 9 times out of 10 first. So yeah, I would say the US is the most advanced. The UK is definitely very advanced too. But the amount of times where I would see a brand or something happen in the NFL and think, oh, that was a good idea, I wish I'd thought of that first. And then the whole industry copies.
Right. Okay. Well, that's very valuable advice. And I think this was a very useful session. And I hope our viewers take advantage of the knowledge that's come through on this discussion. And I thank you for your time, Simon, and hopefully we can catch up again. Thank you.
Thank you. That was enjoyable. Thanks so much.